pleasant good afternoon to you from the KXAN Live studios. I'm Billy Gates, and this is, of course, the Horns Report, where we talk about all things UT athletics. And with me today is KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, we've got a lot to talk about, mainly about football. I know it's April, but the spring game just happened, and there's quite a bit of buzz around, being that Arch Manning had a terrific game, and everybody, freaks out whenever he touches a football around here. So, what does the spring game actually tell people about a football team?
Yeah, it's a chance to, see him live, and Arch put on a good show, and Steve Sarkisian said that was the plan, to let him play a lot, and Quinn Ewers certainly a known commodity, and so he played a little, and then turned it over to Manning and true freshman early enrollee Trey Owens, and then a couple of the walk-on guys. You see some of the former players, they're anxious, getting ready for the draft, and of course, Ewers' first throw gets batted down by Ethan Burke, and Alfred Collins takes it to the house for a touchdown. But yeah, Arch Manning certainly looked the part. He threw the ball deep. He threw it with accuracy. He made those long throws from the opposite hash, and so I think everybody got excited. Then nationally, people get excited because they want to create something that I don't think's here with Manning. And so here we go into the offseason with all that buzz about a guy that's probably going to be the backup quarterback all season if Quinn Ewers stays healthy.
Yeah, and you talk about the national kind of media narrative that wants to get pushed by, all those folks that are outside here. They don't have the exact, kind of access that we do here. But it's always been Quinn's show. Steve Sarkisian has said that from the beginning. It's always been Quinn's team. Like you said earlier, he didn't have to play in the spring game. He played a couple series, completed a pass to Chante Cook. Thereafter, he had that pass batted down, and Alfred Collins took it about 15 yards for a pick six, which that was an interesting first touchdown in the spring game, because after that, the defense didn't make a ton of plays. It was certainly geared toward the offense. Freshman quarterback Trey Owens, he looked very, very comfortable after enrolling early and literally just having 14 practices coming out of Houston Cy-Fair. He looked like he could possibly contribute if Ewers or Manning both kind of go down.
Yeah, I think comfortable is the exact word. He didn't look like he was overwhelmed, didn't look nervous, didn't get jumpy in the pocket. He's a big kid, and so, he's got a good arm, and we got to see a plethora of receivers make plays, and I'm sure everybody got excited about number 5, Ryan Wingo, the early enrollee freshman from St. Louis, came in with a lot of hype and certainly didn't do anything to calm the hype with the way he looked. But again, when the offense is making good plays, okay, what happened on the defensive side, and defense makes a big play, what happens? So it's always that tug of war when you're playing basically an inter-squad game.
Yeah, and there's some scuttle online about how bad the defense looked, but Jahdae Barron didn't play. He's probably, I would almost go as far as saying he's their best defensive player at this point, given what he's done. And then they had the secondary kind of split up between each team, so all those big plays. I think that says more about the skill of Texas offensive players, particularly Wingo. DeAndre Moore had a big 75-yard touchdown catch. Jaden Blue coming out of the backfield with a big 30-yard catch for a touchdown. Offensively, this team shouldn't have any problems putting points on the board.
Well, I don't think if you went to the spring game, the first thing is you were entertained.
Sure.
It was for a spring game, and I've been to a bunch of them. It was pretty entertaining. And so that's for almost 50,000 people. And I would venture to say a large percentage of them, that's going to be their chance to see this team in person. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Second thing is it's practice number 15. And that's what it was. And they played it in a game-like situation. But I think the track record is there that I wouldn't worry about too much anywhere at this point. Now, maybe when they play Colorado State, and if defensive line can't get pressure, the back end gives up big plays. Yeah, then you're concerned going to Ann Arbor, Michigan the next week. But right now, I think it was a pretty entertaining afternoon, and fans got to see this team and these guys in a situation maybe they don't get to see because they can't, afford to pay for a ticket for a Saturday afternoon.
Right. No, I definitely was. I'm right there with you. That was a very, very entertaining afternoon of football. Even with it, being April 20th, it's kind of weird to talk about football in April, but hey, here we are. You mentioned Michigan. That is the only game so far that has a game time associated with it. Obviously, those will get all hashed out, 2 weeks beforehand by the broadcasting networks. But they're going to go up to the Big House in Michigan, take on the defending CFP national champs. The new look. Michigan Wolverines with a new coach, a new basically everybody.
Yeah.
They're gonna play the big noon kickoff game on Fox. 11 a.m. Central is the scheduled kickoff time, and that seems appropriate for a game of that magnitude. Don't you think?
We were kind of hinted of this because for Texas and Oklahoma to get out of their Big 12 deal early, there had to be some concessions. And the big concessions are with the TV partners.
Right.
So Fox wanted inventory, and so that's why they flipped the game. They're going to Ann Arbor rather than Michigan coming, and they get that inventory from that game on Fox. So, yeah, that's no big surprise. The other buzz is what happens to OU's game time, and there's a lot of push, I think, from UT and Oklahoma. Now, can they get the network on board to get a 2:30 kick at the Cotton Bowl? So we'll see if that happens. But, it was kind of interesting timing there. About an hour before the spring game, we get that announcement that the Michigan game time has been set just to get everyone a little bit more excited.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's kind of expert timing, really.
That's right.
Coach Jim Harbaugh no longer with the Wolverines. He is the head coach of the NFL's LA Chargers. That's still weird to say. I almost said San Diego Chargers. So they have Sharon Moore as their head coach now. He was the interim coach when Harbaugh was serving his suspension for the sign stealing kind of fiasco, which led to an analyst resigning, all this stuff. So maybe that's behind Michigan, but they've got a CFP national title trophy to show for that, so I don't think they mind too much.
Yeah, and I'll call them the reigning, not defending national champs this season because, the roster is going to look so different. And it'll be interesting to see how Texas can go in there before they get to the SEC. They have to go play in front of 107,000 in Ann Arbor. And, one of the things Sark talked about right after the game was their need for more bodies on the defensive line. And lo and behold, today they get a commitment from a transfer portal defensive lineman, Bill Norton from Arizona. The connection with Johnny Nansen, the new linebackers coach. He started his career at Georgia. And I think Sark would probably like to get even one more. And then punter position, they got an incoming scholarship punter from Fort Lauderdale, but they don't have any on the roster, so that might be another area where they look into. And then, they're probably going to lose players. In fact, just had a report that Savion Red is going to enter the portal, according to ESPN, a guy that we saw him in that Wildcat. It worked some, didn't work some, but kind of a numbers game for him. So it looks like he might go. And, Sark said exit interviews after the spring game. Well, might have heard some things that, best interest of him. And that, I think the coaches are pretty honest with these kids. And so I don't think that should be a big shock that he's going to look for a new place to play.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a good thing the coaches are honest because, I mean, in the end, like you're saying, what's in the best interest of the player, like Savion Red can go contribute to another football team somewhere else. And I think not stringing him along with potential playing time in the backfield when this backfield is just absolutely loaded again with talent. So, and he's just making that position change. He started last year, so he's already kind of behind everybody else when it comes to pick up the playbook, stuff like that. So,
the world we're in right now, it's that you can't take it personal. Because guys are going to come and go, and then there's that X factor of NIL, and do they investigate better opportunities elsewhere there? So, and I think Sark needs some attrition to keep it at 85 scholarships. I don't have the exact numbers,
Sure.
but I think they're pretty close.
Yeah.
So if he wants to add, he might have to subtract offensive lineman Peyton Cortland going to Colorado. Kai Woods, he's had a couple of big spring games. Running back walk-on. He's going to go try to play somewhere else, it looks like, and see if he can get on where he can actually get some playing time.
Yeah.
So kind of the world we're in all of college athletics.
Yep, college football free agency.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt about
Crazy.
it.
It's crazy. All right, switching gears over to baseball here real quick. They had they really needed a series win against TCU, who's probably been the biggest disappointment in the Big 12 this season after being ranked number 1 by conference coaches in the preseason poll. TCU's having a tough year. So Texas getting a 2-1 series victory with a 2-1 win on Saturday. That pitching with LeBaron Johnson finally came through for the Longhorns.
Yeah, that was so badly needed. There was some talk about whether he would even still be in the weekend rotation. They moved him to the Sunday guy. Struggled against Houston, didn't last long, and then able to come back and give him 6 1/3 on Sunday. And this is Friday night's game.
This is Friday, yeah.
The loss to TCU, but they've become pretty good at figuring out how to navigate through that game 1 loss, and they did it again the 4th time in Big 12 play. They've won the final 2 games of a series, so now tied for second. RPI is not great, so you never know how the committee looks at that. We always think it's really important. You never know, but obviously a big weekend in Norman coming up against OU that. They're threatening to run away and hide with this thing with a 3-game lead over 3 teams, including Texas.
Yeah, and actually I got the baseball standings here for the Big 12. Let's bring them up right here. Like Roger was saying, Oklahoma 14-4 leading the way, and then there's a logjam between Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and Texas. They're 2-3-4. They're all 11-7. Texas Tech rounds out the top 5, 12-9. Boy, those losses to BYU are looking worse by the day.
Yeah,
they're not having a great season.
Two reasons.
Right.
1, the standings, and 2, again, mention the RPI. Yeah. That's a quad 4 loss. 2 of them, and they've got a bunch of those, so that hurts their computer ranking. But yeah, and you look at the back end. And how about TCU? I mean, 10 make the tournament right now.
Yeah.
If the season ended, TCU wouldn't even make the short trip over to Arlington to play for the Big 12 tournament. So a lot can happen. There's still several weeks left. The Horns have big series left. I mean, they've got Oklahoma, and then they got Oklahoma State coming in, and then they've got to go to Central Florida before closing out with Kansas. So a lot of baseball to be played.
Yeah, and going back to kind of on the field stuff, he had 4 walks yesterday, but I thought LeBaron Johnson really kind of, after he sort of, maybe it's something kind of mental, maybe it was something mechanical, but he's starting to kind of fix what's been going on these past 4 or 5 starts, because he hasn't had a start over 3 innings since the Baylor series in mid-March. So he was able to go, I believe, 6 1/3 against TCU there on Sunday. 7 strikeouts, 4 walks. You don't want to see that number up there, but in the end, still, given everything that's happened, pretty good start for him.
Well, and if this can be a starting point, if you will, that would be huge. Because remember last year, he came in the rotation late in the year and then just was lights out towards the end of the season. But I guess the key yesterday, you would have to say, is he got himself out of some of the trouble he got into. He got the 4 walks. The only run he gave up was on a wild pitch. So he did manage to get out of some trouble. And then Gage Bame has turned into that guy that if you give him the lead in the late innings, there's a good chance he's going to hold it. And then, Billy, you go back to Saturday, and what Ace Whitehead and Kate O'Hara, they were able to do, just 2 arms. So all of a sudden you've got, it didn't get close where, okay, you bring in Bame Saturday, maybe it's not as effective Sunday. So that all worked out. Again, they got to figure out game 1. Max Grubbs wasn't bad, and then things got away from him in the 8th and the 9th when that deficit got back to 5 runs with 2 runs in the top of the 9th, started out with 2 walks. Yeah,
and Ace Whitehead, local kid from Lampasas, he's having quite a year. I mean, and I know, like, if you talk with guys on the team and talk with Coach Pierce, it's not a surprise. They see everything that goes on during practice and stuff. But for folks outside the program, Ace Whitehead becoming sort of that day 2 starter, that Saturday starter, that raises eyebrows a little bit. That's a nice little feather in his cap for the local kid.
Well, no doubt. I mean, he came in and primarily was used as a pinch runner and an outfielder, and then they started to pitch him a little bit last year, and then now this year, strictly pitcher. And again, he's not going to blow you away. Throws tops out at about 88, but he attacks, and it's so funny to hear coaches talk about they just want guys to compete, and you think that's kind of a non-starter.
Sure.
But you see so many pitchers, they start to nibble, and they get 2 strikes, and then they throw 3 balls, and all of a sudden it's a walk, or they hang one late. And Ace Whitehead said, all right, if you're going to hit it, good chance you're going to hit it to one of my 8 or 7. And if not, then, I'm going to get you out. And he's going to give up some hits and some runs. He's not overpowering, but he gives them a chance, and he doesn't, go 100 pitches in 5 innings.
Yeah, no, the pitching to contact is something that isn't really
popular
preached anymore. Like everybody wants to throw, 95, 96, but they don't know where it's going to go half the time. And something can be said about being crafty, throwing in those mid to high 80s, but throwing strikes, filling up the zone, and getting guys to hit, weak contact. That's what Ace Whitehead's been able to do.
Yeah, and I think it gets contagious. We hear about hitting gets contagious, and I think the best example was that Tuesday against UTRGV. It just got out of hand. I mean, when David Pierce tells me on Friday it's like something he's never seen.
Yeah,
he's seen a lot of baseball, and so it just kind of snowballed. And on the flip side, hopefully, for Texas's sake, they see some of these outings now, and other guys start to get right. I know they'd like to get David Shaw right again. They thought he was going to be their stud out of the bullpen. He's struggled a little bit, but David Pierce has had a history of that back end of the season kind of figuring things out. They're going to have to, because either they have to put a bunch of good wins together or make a run in Arlington right now. Now there's 4 series to go, but Baseball America and D1 Baseball, they've got them as a very low 3 seed in their projections, and that's basically last few in.
Yeah, and I mean they'd be a tough out as a 3 seed. I mean if they can put it all together, but we'll see. They've got time to improve that RPI, and then we'll see where they go from here. So they got Oklahoma this weekend. They got a midweeker with UT Arlington, I believe Tuesday.
Yeah, and it's big because if they lose, it's just terrible for them to keep losing these Tuesday games. And David Pierce came in when he was hired for Auguerito. He said 2 big things we want to do is win on Sunday, which obviously is that swing game. However, it turns out on the weekend, and then win those midweek games primarily so you don't lose them. And by that I mean at Texas, you're going to play a lot of midweek games against teams that don't have a great RPI. You're going to play them at home, so you don't get a bump that way. So the wins aren't going to help you much. The losses are going to hurt you a lot.
Losses are killer.
And that's what's happened. A loss to Texas A&M, not going to hurt you much.
No.
But the losses to RGV, A&M Corpus Christi.
I was going to say, the other A&M that they play.
This year, Texas State at home.
Yeah.
And they split with them at home, and then lost to them at Minute Maid. But, you get the idea. They got to win those games and avoid bad losses.
Yep, that is the name of the game in college baseball. Switching to softball here real quick before we go. UT softball continuing their dominance over the Big 12. They sweep Kansas. Reese Atwood has tied the program record for 66 RBIs. She's got 15 homers. That's 2 or 3 short of the program record. She's got a good chance. I mean, chances are she's going to break the RBI record
this week,
maybe Thursday, when they take on. I'm blanking their midweek game.
State.
Nichols, yeah, there we go. And then they've got their last home series against Iowa State, middling Iowa State. We'll bring up their the Big 12 standings right now. That's a good segue. Oklahoma a game ahead of Texas, even though Texas beat them 2 out of 3 this season. Oklahoma State right there, 16-5, and then everybody else, the very top-heavy Big 12 softball standings, and that one loss to Houston, I mean, talk about an outlier.
Yep.
And that is just yikes.
And didn't Oklahoma lose to BYU?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. So and that's why I'm sure Mike White will have his team on edge this weekend when 5-13 Iowa State comes in, and then they close it out at Texas Tech. And I did the math and looking at the schedule. That'll be the final team sport game between Texas and Texas Tech in Lubbock. And so those Tech fans have had a few shots this year, and they've come up empty trying to send Texas off to the SEC with a loss in Lubbock. So they'll get their chance. Probably not the best chance for them to do it against. Maybe at the time will be the number one team in the nation. But so 2 more Big 12 series for them. And as Mike White said last week, the key is to stay in that top 8, not the rankings, but just in the projections. And then once the seeding comes out to be a top 8, then you host.
Get the
as long as you win up until the World Series.
Yeah, you get the committee on your side, and you're playing a regional and then a super at home.
They will be. I mean, their schedule's so good, and their quality. I mean, 2 wins against Oklahoma.
Right. I mean,
if they stop playing, they say, they've got to be a top 8. But they want to keep racking up the wins, and who knows if OU loses one more. They could share the title and then be the number 1 seed because obviously they'd have the tiebreaker.
Yep, and then perhaps another game just for fun in the Big 12 tournament against each other.
I don't think there's a question. That's a good possibility.
Yeah. All right, well, hey, that'll do it for this edition of Horns Report. Thank you so much for watching. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.